Hello, you guys. I'm Carlos, and I'm here today with Reverend Terry Koehn, who is the District Superintendent of the Northeast District. We want to hear everything about his ministry. But before we start today, I want to invite you once again, if you have not already, like us on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, please let us know or subscribe to it so that you get the latest one all the time, the podcast. Also, if you have any friends that may think that you may like about what we're talking about and what we're doing here at the annual conference, please share with everybody so that the word spreads around and all the wonderful things that God is doing through the annual conference are known to many, or as many as possible. So without further ado, thank you for being here today. I know that it was a drive. I know that it is not an easy thing, and going from Claremore, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City.
It's a familiar road by now.
You're right, because you have to do that.
Very familiar.
So with that, this is a familiar thing. You are one of those veterans, DSs, in the cabinet. So how has it been, the transition from being the Green Country District Superintendent to this new redistricting, and including now the metro area in Tulsa? So how is it going?
Well, I tell people a lot, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hydrant, or sipping from a fire hydrant.
Right, sipping.
Anyway, and so things are moving quickly, and there's a lot going on, but it's been a good transition in the sense of the two sets of leadership working well together so far. It's really been like having two districts for a few months. We knew there would be transition with that, and so that'll take a little bit of time. There's the technical part of that, merging budgets and leadership structures and all of that. But folks are working together well, and there's so many exciting things going on. We'll get to some of that in a minute, but
great.
I don't necessarily think of myself as a veteran, I guess, because the chapters have changed.
Right, okay.
I came on in 2019 and barely had my feet under me, and here came spring of 2020 and the pandemic. And then after that, we moved into this season of recalibration and disaffiliation. And then it was on to redistricting. And now, of course, we're blessed to have our first female bishop in Oklahoma, and Bishop Merrill. And so working with her is the next chapter. So it's been one chapter after another, really.
Right. So you have a normal...
I'm not sure what that is.
That's what it is, right?
It's just the next thing.
Right. Awesome. So talking about the exciting things that are happening in the district, so what are the churches that you would like to, raise up? What are they're doing as a ministry that can be maybe adapted or adopted across our annual conference? Other the superintendents have come and talked to us about it, and hopefully other churches have taken note. So what are the exciting things that are happening in the Northeast District that you want to share today? Well,
it's a great question, and so I appreciate the opportunity. There are so many things I could lift up, but I think I'm going to lift up two churches. I'm going to lift up the Monday community meal at Inola, and I'm going to lift up the ministry at Tulsa Hope, which was just featured in the recent Contact. I hope everybody reads it. Spot 31. Because they're very different ministries, yet they represent some things that I think are really important.
Right.
They don't necessarily, you certainly come out of two different contexts, a small town and urban center of Tulsa, so they're representative in that way. They don't come out of our largest churches necessarily, but more importantly, there's some little seeds that I think fit together in this in these stories that are common, that they have in common, that I'd like to kind of point out. So Inola's community meal, Monday seems like a strange day to have a community meal, but it emerged out of an awareness that not only is an opportunity to just do something that was outreach, but Inola schools are out on Mondays. And they also discovered that the senior center does not serve meals on Monday. So there are two groups of people, children and senior adults, who do not have maybe a meal option on Mondays, so they started that community meal, and it takes other folks in the community to help make it happen.
Right.
So that's they were leaning in to what the community needed, and so it was not just about the church at that
awesome.
point. Spot 31, as the story in the contact indicates, I won't rehearse the whole thing here, but it starts out with a Wednesday night, an otherwise normal Wednesday night for that church, almost 15 years ago. Two young people, two young neighbors walk in the door. They're curious and they're hungry, and they feed them. But other things began to develop, and then pretty soon they were bringing others. And now you fast forward, and what began in that small, simple way has become an outreach to over 150 young people.
That's amazing.
A variety of ministries have spun out of it, a nonprofit.
Yes.
And so all of that is neat, but it didn't just happen either.
Right.
You know, some of it's miraculous, like anything that goes well, there's an element of grace in it, and God is in this.
Yes. Yes.
But I think there are three ingredients in both of those. You asked about something that could be replicated.
Yes.
So certainly folks could do community meals or start similar things as Spot 31. But more important are, I think, the themes. So the first theme, and I think these themes really are a part of what will shape the future of the church. Not just the United Methodist Church, but the body of Christ in the world.
Right. Capital C, church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big C. The first is neighboring. And so folks who see me in the district and that hear me at charge conferences, they're hearing these things a lot. So this will be repetitious for some. But neighboring. What is it like? What does it mean for us to get past seeing the folks who aren't in the church, just around, in the community, in the neighborhood? What does it mean, and what does it take to move past just seeing them as strangers or even clients of our ministries to neighbors? When they do well, the church can flourish. When they suffer, so does the church. So that idea of neighboring, and in both of these cases, Inola and at Spot 31 out of Tulsa Hope, they found a way to neighbor. They started seeing these folks, working with people as neighbors. But then that led to the second word, which is gathering. Neighboring moves to gathering. And that doesn't just mean gathering people, which it does. I mean, our churches are great places for people to gather. We should find opportunities for people to be in the building or to gather people up around common interests and themes and just for conversation. But it's also about listening to those gatherings and then gathering ideas. Communities have, even communities that seem downtrodden, that seem to have a lack of resources, there is a wealth in any community of vision. People in that community have a vision for something that could be game-changing in their community. And we need to try to gather that up. And then the third thing, neighboring, gathering, and then the third thing is partnering. The church's name does not have to be on something for it to be the work of God. And so what does it mean after we've neighbored and we've gathered and we have a sense of what's needed and what begins to emerge and what we hear, to then partner with other agencies, other activities? I think we have got to get a lot better as leaders and servants in the church to look around and say, where are the things that we think Jesus would smile at? The things that, and then come alongside and say, the Lord we serve, we believe we see in what you're doing something that would please Him. And so we try to come alongside that, which can then lead to more neighboring, more gathering, more partnering. Gil Rendell talks a lot about this, so do other authors, and like Gil Rendell's book, Countercultural, which everybody hears me talk about. But so those are some things, those are a couple of ministries I'd lift up. There are a lot, but they didn't just do something nice for their community,
Right.
which is good as far as it goes.
Sure.
But even more so, they found a way to really neighbor
Yeah.
and to begin to get good ideas, and it takes partnerships beyond
Yeah.
the church for those
Right.
ministries to happen.
Right. So what I'm understanding is, be attentive as to what God is doing out there in the ministry, in the mission field, in the community already, what Christ is up to, and then do not see necessarily the community as a recipient of our pity or of our mercy, but as
Right.
already as an asset, that something is already an asset in there, and how can we, as you say, partner to do what God is calling us to do. So
Yeah, they're
wonderful.
participants,
Participants,
in changing the world,
Yeah.
not obstacles
Right,
to changing the world.
right. Yeah, it could be easily done, right, to be an obstacle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, those needs are not just things that, like, oh, here's our reason for existing because God created these avenues that
Right.
No, the brokenness in the world is present, but and we should be opportunistic in the sense of we care and we want to make a difference, but
Right.
but there's always going to be
Right.
work to be done in any community,
Agreed.
even if we fix whatever
Right,
somebody thinks the problem is.
Right. Well, awesome. Thank you. So if anybody in the conference want to reach out to Inola or to Hope in Tulsa, they can reach out and ask how the ministry is going and just ask some information, right? I'm assuming?
They
That'll be the
can.
case?
Inola has a Facebook page and a website, and I know Reverend Pam Cottrell, who serves there, would be willing to visit about that. Debbie Gant at Spot 31 from Tulsa Hope. Richard Brazier, who's the pastor there now as well.
Yeah, awesome, great. All right, so now going back a little bit to, you were talking at the beginning, has been of having two districts, so to speak, at the beginning of this redistricting and the technical parts and everything. So what has been a blessing that you have seen on these work that you have seen? What a blessing, and what is the challenge that you have seen in those two?
So I made some notes about that.
Please, by all means.
That I anticipated a little bit of that question. So I just want to kind of share some of these things. So the Northeast District now in Oklahoma is largely a matter of merger. 80+% of the former Green Country churches and 100% of the former Council Oak churches make up that district. So it's an interesting mix of urban, suburban, rurban, rural, small towns, small cities. So it's a really interesting mix, eclectic, if that's a good word for it, of contexts and churches and scope of ministries. The newest church starts are in the district, the Tapestry
Oh, cool.
at Owasso, Claremore Grace.
Okay.
And then this new emerging work out of Tulsa Faith in Bixby.
Bixby. Awesome.
So then there's the ongoing project with Community Brookside in that exciting area of Brookside of Tulsa that's just exploding. And we are working with a partnership with a well-known developer with a successful history to develop a multi-purpose, not multi-purpose, really multi-use building that will house other businesses and give the church a permanent home. And it's a partnership that is really fairly unique. We've looked across the United States, in United Methodist context at least, and we don't find many examples of this, if any.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
It's got to be done carefully and strategically to protect our position and our property. Of
course, yeah.
But it too, I think, prefigures the future.
Right. That's awesome.
So I'm kind of a futurist who loves history.
Sure.
But these things, I think, are, John Wesley was this way.
Right.
And
Pragmatic.
So the early Methodists, yes, they were very diligent in mission and cared much about the spread of the gospel, but found these ways to, I think, neighbor and gather and partner. So
Yeah,
it really is
sure.
in our DNA. There's Cookson Mission, there's Camp Egan, then the two great campus ministries at Tulsa University and at Northeast State University in Tahlequah. All that, and I haven't mentioned the robust lay servant ministry in Northeast Oklahoma.
Yeah, you guys are very active in that matter.
Yes. So all of that to say, when I get up and sort of face that fire hydrant every day, I'm aware that in Northeast Oklahoma, of course everywhere, but in Northeast Oklahoma, the United Methodist churches and people there make a difference in thousands of lives. And that awareness is my blessing.
That's beautiful. That's great. That's great. So I'm assuming that by the same token, all those things can be a challenge and stressor at times, right?
They are, sure, yeah.
So maybe managing.
Not everybody's happy all the time.
Sure, yeah,
but there are many, many good things that are happening that do give people hope,
right,
and strength.
Maybe this is a little bit off script, but how has it been going with you guys being Claremore? Typically has been more in the urban area, Tulsa area, the district anyway, the district office. So how is that coming along?
So leaving the district office for Northeast District in Claremore there was strategic thinking about that. It's a way of reminding all of us that the district's not just Tulsa, or it's not just that former Green Country area. So we're really in a good place in that sense for that reminder. But it's gone well. The district center is the kind of space that can host groups up to about 100.
Wow.
And so we have offered it for Sunday school classes, for retreats, for leadership retreats from churches, for other groups, United Women in Faith. It can be used for lay servant training. So it has multiple uses besides just office space for Brenda and me. And since I mentioned Brenda, I need to say what a great partnership that is, and the teamwork that we are able to enjoy together in this work really makes it so much easier, I think, I guess. But I don't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
But I haven't, redistricted before, so. But it makes it her veteran leadership and knowledge, just all the ingredients and components are there to make the transition as smooth as it can be.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to say, particularly to the people on the Northeast District? Just, I don't know, being present. I know that some district superintendents, some people in the feel a bit in the local congregations feel a bit nervous that now with the extended territory that district superintendents have to take care and cover. Say, well, how is he or she going to be present? And so, I don't know if you want to address them and say, here I am, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to be there around you, whatever you want to tell the good people of the Northeast District.
Yeah, and I certainly experienced that. It's been a challenge to, I want to get to all the former Council Oak churches all at one time, and I just can't. These. And there are other events and activities on Sundays that take my attention, and charge conferences, but I'm gradually getting around to see all of those churches and at least bring a greeting, say hello, or be in worship, being present to those churches in some way. So that's the physical travel part of that, getting around everybody is important to me. But it's more important that people know that I'm available, that I'm reliable, and visible as I can be. And so I appreciate this opportunity. But the thing I really want to say, and I think many in Northeast Oklahoma have already heard this, but that verse of Scripture from Romans 13:15, one of Paul's blessings, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. I think a lot of things have happened in recent years that can rob our joy and steal our peace. Some of us have even been told that remaining United Methodist, our faith is being called into question. And I think that verse is timeless and timely. We need new joy and peace in our resilient faith in Christ through all of the challenges. And every challenge is a new opportunity to see God work in new ways. So we need to continue to be curious about that and sensitive to it and receptive to it.
Of course, yeah. Thank you. All right, so just to wrap it up, just we are here in the home stretch. So I've been asking this question in this following way: What are things that you do that keep you centered into what is the heart of the ministry? Because it is easy to be wrapped up in the business of ministry and all the minutiae that you have to take. You were explaining many things. So what things bring you back? I don't know if there's a hobby, there's a spiritual practice that you do, or many different things that you do you wanted to share with everybody.
I do lots of reading, both for pleasure and for knowledge. I've always got a stack of books somewhere in the office or at home as well. So try to spend some quiet moments in evenings or mornings or on my typical Sabbath day, which is Friday. I do a lot of reading on those days. When I get a chance, I go kayaking.
Ah, there you go.
I have equipment for kayak camping and kayak fishing, or just tooling around on the water. Tending to the landscaping and plants, that's something that many people would find to be a chore, but I enjoy it, and it allows me to think, and really more than that, it allows my mind to just sort of run free and make connections. And then anytime we get a chance to get away in our travel trailer, we enjoy doing that. So
fun.
So those are the things, and all of those involve a certain kind of labor.
Right.
So work to it, but it's work that refills and renews.
Yeah. It's an energy feeling labor. I'm assuming.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is what I think work was created in the beginning to do. So not to get into a whole other topic, but work comes before the fall. Humans were put in the garden to tend it and keep it, to be co-creators and co-laborers with God. The fall enters the picture quickly, but before that is this original goodness, including the original goodness of work and fulfilling labor.
Right.
And so the fall certainly affects everything, including work, but at its best, it gives us energy and purpose and direction.
Well, thank you for being here again. Thank you for taking the time to
Thanks for doing the interviews.
Well, hey, it's my pleasure.
Thanks to the people behind the cameras as well.
That's right. Thank you for everybody who's working along to Circle Update to do this. Thank you again. Hello, you guys. I'm Carlos, and I'm here today with Reverend Nancy Hamilton. I am so happy that you're here today with us.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about the fifth dream, which is new leaders for an emerging conference. But before we start, we'd like to introduce yourself to the good people of the Oklahoma Conference. Just make sure that they know you and your whole title, because I know it's kind of long and laborious.
Well, hello, Oklahoma Conference. I am Reverend Nancy Hamilton. My official title is the Associate Director of Connectional Ministry for Leadership / the Executive Secretary to the Board of Ordained Ministry. And so how I explain that is a large part of what I do is helping people through the process of becoming licensed or ordained in the Oklahoma Conference office.
So basically, you're the person to go if you feel the calling, which we're going to get into the whole thing.
I'm one of many people.
One of many people.
Within the process.
Ah.
So I see myself as a resource to help candidates, to help district committees of ministry in local churches.
10-4. Well, we're going to get into the matter then. All right, so talking about the fifth dream, also the Oklahoma Youth Conference discerned 5 dreams, and one of them it is 5 dreams to as a strategic approach for doing ministry for the annual conference, right?
Yes.
And one of these dreams is new leaders for an emerging conference. So how is your ministry living out this dream?
So the dream talks about clergy leadership and lay leadership. So my job specifically is within that clergy realm, and so that's what I've am focusing on. But so working with the board and the Board of Ordained Ministry and at a district level is helping them and being a resource, as I said, to those candidates as they come through the process, because it can be a hard, kind of confusing process. So part of my goal is to help people along,
right.
To give them the resources that they need.
So you work with the board as in conference level.
Yes.
And then you work with also district level.
Correct.
Boards of district in DCOMs. I can't remember what the.
Correct.
District committees on ministry.
Yes. DCOMs. We have lots of those.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know DCOM is easier. So.
DCOM is easier, but people are like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
So yes, the district committee of ministry. And so when you have a candidate that feels like they have a call to ministry, there is a process, and the DCOMs are in that initial process. So I work with them to help people.
So you also you work with district superintendents and
I do.
and
Yes.
maybe even local pastors that say we have this person and
Correct.
yeah. So,
Correct.
So you work at all levels.
Yes.
Awesome.
I do.
All right. So how can congregations create or have a culture of calling, an ethos that it is part of a DNA in the local congregation, where people in the pews may feel, or that tugging of Jesus Christ calling them to ministry.
Sure.
So how can the local congregations create that it is a fairly simple, well, not the word simple, but fairly common, that it is not a extraordinary thing, if you will, that it is just part of who they are as a congregation?
Well, I think when you talk about calls, a lot of times, especially in our sphere of influences, it's a call to ministry. But as Christians, we're all called to serve God and build up God's kingdom. And so I think that's an important piece, is that in a local congregation to have that language to talk about calls that everybody has. Everybody can be called to serve,
right.
Whether that's maybe they have a calling to be a Sunday school teacher, or they have a mind for finance and they're calling. So I believe God has given us gifts and talents, none more important than the other. But if the local congregation is creating a culture of call and that everybody can be a part of, I think that's one of those first steps.
Right. Yeah, it's good that you remind us that calling to be a minister, or ordained minister, it is not better than
Correct. It's
a
not.
Sunday school teacher or a children's minister, in as a layperson or whatever it is that they call to.
Right.
So that's a good thing. All right. So how can congregations, therefore? So let's say that my local congregation has a DNA, part of who they are, an ethos of calling. So everybody's answering the call, whatever that may be. But then there's particular people that are called to be in ordained ministry.
Sure.
So how can congregations help that particular person to go and help them to go through the process, or even discern what they call for?
So when I'm talking with a candidate, there's two two words that I use: discerning and exploring. And so I think discerning is the part of the candidate. They're talking to God, they're talking to people within that have seen them in ministry, and discovering what is God calling them to, and what are their gifts. What do other people see within them? But then that exploring piece, I think, is very important, because somebody could have, they feel called to serve the church, but in what aspect? So if we can give people opportunities to serve as Sunday school teachers, or lead a Bible study or a mission, and give like boots on the ground to that discerning piece, so that they're exploring. And how can you live that out? Because if you just have a general sense of call to serve the church, I think the local congregation can provide those opportunities to navigate that. And somebody may be called to teach if they get into a school age classroom, and they're like, oh, this is not right. Well, let's try an older age group, or maybe you're called to teach adults. And so again, everybody is gifted differently. And so I think if churches then can give opportunities to explore that, I think that's really important.
So exploring is boots on the ground, actually doing the thing.
That's how I see that,
right.
yes.
And discerning is more on the philosophical, if you will, spiritual part of it.
It's your conversations with God.
Right.
And I also think an important piece to this is calls are grounded in community, just like the kingdom of God. And so you have people that see gifts that maybe you don't. Because I remember specifically for me, when I was in college, I was, my freshman year, I thought I was going to be an early education teacher. I wanted to teach, first grade, second grade, and the campus minister's wife, who I had known from my church, my local church, we had gone to the same church. She said, Nancy, I really see you in ministry. And so we had those conversations. And so I think calls are personal, but they're never private. And so we live that out, and we discover that within community. And I think that's an important piece as well.
Yeah, community. So if you feel some tugging, make sure that you talk to your pastor,
yes,
to leaders in your local community, in your local congregation.
That is the first step. That is the first step.
Yeah, figure out where God is calling you to be.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
In that, and then local congregation offer the opportunities for them to explore.
Exactly.
Many ways, and say, it's not this, it's always that, or maybe closer to this. Right. All right. Go ahead. So
I was just going to say is that your relationship with your either senior pastor or the pastor of your church is that first step. Right. And so there's a book that all, hopefully all or most clergy have that lead a church, The Christian as Minister, and going through this with the candidate to help them discern and explore. So let's talk about the candidate then. So say that there is a person who is going to feeling the calling, explore it, and said, I think it is definitely, I think more on the idea of the ordained ministry, right? So how can they go about answering God's calling within the United Methodist Church, in particular in the Oklahoma Conference? Sure. So as I just said, meeting with your local your local clergy person, your either senior pastor, or if you have an associate, if you're in a bigger congregation with multi-staff, and having those congregations, you'll once you do that, your pastor will set up a time for the SPRC to meet with you. SPRC is? Yes, it's one of those acronyms, the Staff Parish Relations Committee, or if you're in a smaller congregation, it's the Pastor Parish Relations Committee. So that's the committee, and they have some questions to ask you. They'll recommend you. Then you'll meet with the charge conference, and so that's when the DS steps in and you write a letter asking, saying, I feel called, I would like to enter into the process. And so at the local church level, those are the three big pieces. You're having conversations with your pastor, you're meeting with the SPRC, and you're having a church conference. Because at that point, your church, your community of faith is saying, we see and acknowledge these gifts and talents, and we're recommending them, this person, to become a candidate for ministry.
For ministry. So church, we are in the season of church conference right now.
Yes.
So, if you are not familiar, what in the world is church conference? Right now is when all the paperwork and the summary of what God has done in your community, in your local church, transforms into paperwork. And then your district superintendent, either you come to your church or you have these, now it's very common to have these kind of communal, many congregations come together and have one large church conference. That's what it is. So if you're in that process, you have to do this prior to this time of church conference, because this is when you get voted and approved to move to the next step. So what is the next step? So let's say that they have talked to their local pastor, they have talked to their SPRC, and they have going to church conference. So what is the next step for them?
So at that point, hopefully you've had a conversation with your district superintendent, and then they will help you set up an appointment or a meeting with your DCOM. And I always think it's important to have an introductory meeting. So there's the chair, the two main officers are the chair and the registrar. So each DCOM has a registrar, and they keep track of all the forms, all the documents, and help coordinate times and dates for meetings. And then there are several forms. Meeting with your church conference makes you what's called a declared candidate. And so then the next step is to become certified, which you're meeting with your DCOMs. And then there are some requirements, a background check, a credit check, a psychological evaluation, and there's some other forms that need to be filled out. So really heavy on the paperwork. But then they meet with you and see if you're ready for ministry, you're fit for ministry, you're effective in ministry. And that comes from assessments done by your local church. And so that's the next big step to become a certified candidate.
I mean, it is just to show that in the United Methodist Church, across annual conferences, becoming an ordained pastor is not you come on the call and okay, we put you in the pulpit and that's it. It's a long process.
It is a long process because it's an important step, and in that discerning and exploring stage, is never, I don't think, ever really set in stone until you and God are like, this is right. And so because you could be exploring whether on the ordained side of ministry, being a deacon, being an elder, and so there are different roles and responsibilities in that. There's education that needs to happen, and a lot of times candidates will become a certified candidate, become certified because there's some monetary scholarships to help with seminary and educational costs, and so you could be certified for probably, I think an average is 3 years or so, 3 to 5 years, where you're maybe going to seminary, you're getting the education that you need, a master's of divinity, or if you're a deacon, you can have a master's in something else. But then there's money, and you're still connected, and so then when you are ready to be interviewed for commissioning, you meet with your district superintendent, district committee on ministry again. See, I even get it all mixed up. And so, but they recommend you to the board, and then you transition from meeting with your DCOMs to meeting with the board of ordained ministry for interviews
at a conference level.
At a conference level to become eventually ordained in that process. on the other side, the local pastors stay within the DCOMs.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
But all of them go through this process, and it is
Yes.
a continuous. If you're a local pastor, I understand, and I know that you guys they meet with the district on commission.
Committee.
District committee on ordained ministry every single year.
Every year.
Just to keep up with
Right,
that. and-
because the license has to be renewed every year, and so your DCOMs meet with you to see if
Right.
you're continuing.
Right.
But there's also education that comes with the
Yes.
local pastor. It's called
Right.
course of study,
yeah.
and so there's an educational requirement on that side as
Right,
well.
right.
And so we actually have made the General Conference has said that those classes could be online now, and so there are several seminaries, schools, course of study. Another kind of acronym that I use in my office is GBHEM,
Another one.
the Global Board of Higher Education and Ministry, and so they offer course of study. So education is very important, and it's something that we do take seriously. So on both sides of licensed ministry and ordained ministry, there's an educational piece.
Right. So, in the local church, you know that your pastor, either ordained elder, ordained deacon, or local pastor, they have gone or they are going through a rigorous scrutiny. They have gone or are going, and they are also either have gone or going through severe or not severe, but serious educational training and endeavor throughout throughout time.
Well, it's a they are educated. We want our clergy leaders, licensed or ordained, to be educated and knowledgeable as they lead their congregations. And I have heard, the process is like jumping through hoops, but if you look at it as a whole, it is a process to make sure that we have people in filling our pulpits, leading our congregations, that are Wesleyan, and that have the knowledge that they need.
And that they understand the polity of how we do things of the United Methodist Church. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, is there anything else that you need to talk or want to talk about your particular ministry? I see that you have some stuff in there, maybe not, to the good people of Oklahoma before we wrap it up.
Well, one of the things that we discovered from the survey and looking at the dreams is that several people find the process confusing and hard to navigate. So one of the things that we did as a board of ordained ministry is we created the candidacy summit. And so that was in August, and we're looking to do that again. We're not quite sure when, but we wanted everybody to get in the same room so they're hearing the same information. So candidates for ministry at any level, whether they're just inquiring, they're just still talking to their local pastor, the pastor of their local congregation, or maybe they're certified, maybe they're serving as a local pastor. We have several candidates who serve as local pastors while they're still in school and then transition into the ordained ministry. And so at whatever point, we spent a day and a half together having worship and praying, going over all the steps so everybody hears the same information. We were able to meet with the bishop and our district superintendents because we know it's a difficult process, but we don't want people to get frustrated and give up. And so on a board level, we want to give everybody the resources they need to do what they feel like God is calling them to do. And so we've done that. We're also restructuring our licensing school. And so there is some information on the website on that. There's a tab called Licensing School, and so you can get some information there. And so, so in our attempt to help navigating that process better, we have made some steps to do that, and hopefully that's beneficial.
Right, and I just want to just pause here just to say that, it may be a bit, at times overwhelming or daunting, the process could be, but it is because we truly take it seriously.
We do.
It is not something that we take for lightly. Whoever is in leadership, in ordained or licensing leadership, that we take it very seriously, and therefore there's a lot of things that come with that. And yes, it can, as I said, it can be at times daunting or complex.
Yes.
And perplexing.
Yes, all of that.
But because all we take is very seriously what we do.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so wrapping it up, I've been asking this question to everybody who has come here. And so I asked this question in this way. How do you come back to the heart of ministry when the business of ministry can be some, maybe life draining and or at times so demanding that sometimes, talking about experience, sometimes we kind of forget or lose sight, or no, maybe lose sight, but put that in the back burner, because there's other things that need to be done because of the business of ministry. So how can you go back to center back yourself into your spiritual life?
So I read a book, and I think it was by Parker Palmer. And he talked about calling, and a lot of times burnout comes from giving what we don't have. And so for me, being filled, going to worship, I attend worship every week. I connect with friends. I'm very relational, and so I'm very extroverted, and so connecting with my friends and my family is a way to fill me up.
Right.
And I think for me, when ministry has gotten hard, knowing my calling has what's grounded me, and just knowing that I again am a piece to building the kingdom, and so I think that has been helpful as well, and so. It can be hard. There's frustrating days. There are hard days, but I think for me personally, just knowing that I am called to share Jesus and connect people to Jesus, and in this job specifically, helping them discover where God is calling them and helping them. And so for me, that's very purposeful, and so that gives me energy and fills my cup as well.
Yeah. Well, good.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for what you do. If you have any questions regarding all this process, that, as Nancy was saying, sometimes it can be complex. I know that there are steps and there are people that along the way need to be notified first. But she's always, as she said, a resource.
Yes.
So there will be appearing. Information, your email and your phone number and your extension.
Yes.
And you can contact her, and she will direct you to the appropriate person or persons or committees or boards that need to be knowing about this, right?
Yes. And sometimes I'll have a question and I'll direct you to the person, because when you're working with your DCOMs, I try to keep the registrar always in the loop, and so a lot of times it's just connecting people to to another person, but just making sure they are getting the answers that they need.
So contact Nancy if you have any questions, and she will direct you to the appropriate person, and together they can go, or we can go in this journey of answering your call, particularly with ordained or licensing ministry.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here today.
It was great.
Thank you for what you do, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks.